I'm Jason West. I'm the senior judge for this session, and I'm going to provide a little level setting, a little context for what leads into each of your presentations. I'll be going in the order of the Excel document that's provided to me as a judge. Our first 10-minute presentation today will be Descant Consulting, followed by Gem Consulting. Third will be EcoLithium Solutions, Inc. And last but not least, Bread and Butter as the fourth 10-minute presentation. A few instructions here. You have been called back by the company you gave your full presentation to for a second visit. They've asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You will have 10 minutes. There will be no Q&A. You may not use slides or video. You probably don't want to have more than 2 or 3 members of your team do this. I, as the senior judge, will provide feedback after your presentation. And I will also provide these in chat. So if you need to review what I just stated to you, you're welcome to read those instructions that I've shared as well. So we will start things off with Descant Consulting. If you're not part of the Descant Consulting, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right, Descant, tomatoes, Descant Consulting.
Descant Consulting.
Descant Consulting. If you aren't part of that team, please have your video off and your audio off as well. And I turn the floor over to you now.
Good morning, and thank you for having us back. We're Descant Consulting. I'm Shihan, and with my colleagues Jenna and Tian here. It was a pleasure having the opportunity to talk to you yesterday. We understand that today's conversation is about ethics, not what OSISCO can do legally, but what it should do to lead with integrity in today's business climate. We know your goal is to become an intermediate gold producer with a focus on brownfield exploration and district scale growth. And there is clear momentum behind Caribou Gold. With gold prices on the rise, this project is critical to that strategy. The business case is strong, but with opportunity comes responsibility. Caribou Gold sits on indigenous land, and the people of that land, the Hasu First Nation, have raised serious concerns: environmental risks, inadequate consultation, and the lack of an impact benefit agreement. In the end, Hasu withheld their consent, and you move forward anyway. Legally, that may be permitted, but ethically, it raises important questions about your approach to indigenous rights, environmental stewardship, and long-term trust. And let's take a closer look at these issues. The first issue is about consent, or more accurately, the absence of it. Hasu First Nation has never given free, prior, and informed consent, a right formally recognized when Canada committed to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples back in 2021. Moving forward without that consent isn't just a procedural gap, it's a breach of their right to self-determination. The second issue is cultural harm. Hasu is a small community, and their identity, traditions, and way of life are deeply tied to the land, especially to the caribou. The Barkerville caribou herd isn't just part of the ecosystem. It holds cultural, spiritual, and symbolic meaning for the Hasu people. If that herd disappears, it's not just a species lost, it's a piece of who they are. The cumulative impacts of the mine threaten core practices like hunting, harvesting, and ceremony. And when those practices are disrupted, it's not just the environment that's at risk, it's the trust between us, between you and the community. And the third issue here is really about fairness. You stand to gain over $4 billion from Caribou Gold, given the scale and ambition of the project. But there is the thing, without formal agreement, there is no defined benefit for Hasu. No guaranteed jobs, no royalties, no commitment to long-term economic development. And that's what they're asking for, not just a payout, but a future. They want to ensure the health of their land, their people, and their community for generations. So while you may be within legal rights to move forward, the ethical question is, are the benefits of this project being shared? in a way that's truly meaningful to those most impacted by it. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about numbers. It's about whose future is being shaped and who has a say in shaping it.
So yesterday, you emphasized that shareholder wealth maximization really matters. And you also raised the concern that we might be shifting your goal toward the stakeholder value creation. Those were also the challenges we considered when we worked on our approach. But our research shows that these ethical concerns really do have the big impact on the business. Investors today aren't just asking if your operations are legal, they are asking if you walk your talk. So ESG isn't optional anymore. 94% of the institutional investor now use this to guide their decision. And we've seen this play out. Earlier this year, BlackRock, one of the biggest asset managers in the world, rolled out the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative, a clear sign that they are looking at the ESG performance more closely than ever. Companies that don't meet those standards are seeing their funding pulled. So if Cisco is seen as ignoring indigenous rights or not living up to its values, it's not just hit its reputation, it turns into the real business risk. Investors take note, and they don't forget. Ethics aren't just internal matters anymore. They shape how the public see you. And in an industry like mining, which already ranked among the least trusted, that perception really matters. At the same time, awareness of interest toward Indigenous people is growing across Canada. The story of the Hatsuit and Caribou Gold now is already starting to show up in the mainstream media. And once it's in the headlines, it doesn't just stay there. It shows up in the boardroom, in the investment decision, and on the desk of the government official. And if the protest haunt the construction or legal delays extend the timeline, the NVB will drop. The 4.1 billion projection only holds if operations are smooth. And right now, that's not guaranteed.
Thanks, Tian. So what does that ethical path forward really look like for Cisco? It starts with rebuilding a trusting relationship with Hatsuth, not just because it's the strategic thing to do, but because it's right. So we build that trust by listening to their concerns and learning more about their culture. Together, we'll create that impact benefit agreement that's built on shared priorities of long-term economic opportunity through environmental protection and respecting their culture. Hatsuth has said they're not interested in only short-term jobs. They want that long-term economic opportunity and they want their voice to be heard. So we recommend that Indigenous procurement strategy with a target of $21 million in spending so that we're supporting Indigenous businesses and helping them build capacity to continue to have that economic development through mining. And we're going to have quarterly meetings to meet in person and really share about what Cisco is doing and how we're benefiting their community. That keeps us accountable and helps build that ethical legacy. So moving to the side of the environment, Hatsuth has concerns about water management and about the caribou herd, which is so integral to their cultural identity. So we recommend a community-led water management program where we train local water technicians from Hatsuth community so they continue to have those skills to take ownership of their own water management. We also recommend a co-created caribou recovery plan. So that way we can integrate both the scientific knowledge and traditional Indigenous knowledge to better care for this caribou herd and show that it matters to us. And these are concrete steps we can take to show responsibility in our mining and to say that we're committed to stewardship and not just checking a box of compliance. But in order to lead in the mining industry, we need to move from ethical intention to an ethical culture. And so the second part of our recommendation is really about changing to a culture of reconciliation. That means changing our mission statement to include that Indigenous partnerships matter to Cisco. That means hiring a director of Indigenous relations that has the direct ear of the CEO. It means embedding Indigenous decision-making into all of our governance and equipping the team through cultural training, land-based learning exercises, and addressing our hiring strategies so we can have Indigenous representation throughout all levels of management in the company. And that way we can move from consultation to co-creation. Because at the end of the day, the right thing to do is also the smart thing to do. Ethical leadership isn't just about soft skills, it's actually a strategic advantage. And through moving forward with ethics, we have stronger partnership, faster permitting, and decreased delay, and increased investor confidence in a Cisco. So the stakes move beyond a Cisco's culture or a Cisco's finances and Zatsu's culture, but it's that social license to mine. So it's not a question between ethics and success. It's recognizing that the two of those go hand in hand as we move forward. Thank you for your time.
And all team members of JEM Consulting, please join us.
So we are JEM Consulting, and thank you for bringing us back to further discuss the ethics of our recommendation for Walmart to implement a pilot of vertical farms in their stores, specifically starting in the southern United States. We highlight here the Sustainable Development Goal number 2, which targets zero hunger. And it outlines that achieving food security and improving access to healthy and nutritious food is critical to reducing hunger in the United States and globally. And so here we emphasize that for us, healthy food means food that is minimally processed, is chemical and pesticide free, is nutrient dense, and is affordable and easily accessible. It's convenient to buy for consumers in Walmart and of course other retailers.
Data shows that Americans want to eat healthier. Nearly 80% of individuals polled for an American Heart Association study would like a healthier diet. They would do so if it was accessible and convenient to them. Over 60% of survey respondents to the same study say that cost and physical accessibility are primary barriers to eating healthy. Walmart is well positioned as a solution to this issue. 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of your stores. Though Walmart is physically accessible to most Americans, we found that the availability of fresh and pesticide-free options can be limited or out of reach for your consumer's budget.
And so to hone in here, we see nutritious, convenient food as a basic and fundamental human right. And not only this, but we believe that access to this nutritious and healthy food has historically not been distributed equally, especially in the context of the United States. We've identified that in many parts of, again, the American South, food apartheid has really determined how food is distributed equally or unequally. And we use this term food apartheid to symbolize a systemic or institutionalized lack of access or impact into who has access to these healthy foods, fresh produce specifically. And we use this in contrast to the term food desert, which may imply that food is not available or readily accessible because of natural phenomenons or other sort of unavoidable consequences. But really we use this term food apartheid to represent the fact that it is avoidable and that actors like Walmart, food industry leaders, have the power and the massive opportunity to address these food access issues. And they have the moral obligation as well to provide access to healthy and fresh produce for as many people as possible. And not only are these issues critical for Walmart to address head on, especially as they look into committing to ever more ambitious sustainability goals. But there is a massive opportunity to do moral good in implementing these fresh produce solutions. There will be more transparency into their supply chains. The average customer will have a lot more awareness and closeness to the source of their food, and they will have broader access to a wider range of produce that is fresher and was grown within reach of their shopping experience.
So like Emily mentioned, this is not only beneficial to customers who are looking for a more cost-effective and healthier option in the produce aisle. This will also help Walmart reach their lofty emissions goals for 2025 and 2030. In addition to reducing their emissions, this also reduces Walmart's spend on transportation and refrigeration infrastructure. So we're looking at this not only as an ethical solution, but also as a great business case.
Thank you all for your time and consideration, and we believe that this solution is really the best way forward for Walmart, especially as they increase the scope of their sustainability goals from just environmental or emissions-based to a broader definition, including social and community-based well-being outcomes. Thank you.
EcoLithium Solutions, Inc.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Supriya, one of the co-founders of EcoLithium Solutions, and we are so honored to present our venture to this esteemed conference. Thank you for calling us back to discuss this further. When we talk about electric vehicles, we often imagine a cleaner, brighter future, but there is a hidden side to that story, one we rarely think about. Behind every lithium-ion battery that powers our electric vehicles, our electric bikes, the energy storage system that we have in our homes, is a cost paid not just by us, but also by a vulnerable community halfway across the globe. Take cobalt mining in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Right now, as we speak, thousands of children, some younger than 10, are working in dangerous mines, risking their lives to extract cobalt for our batteries. They endure hazardous conditions, severe health impacts, and poverty wages, sacrificed to meet global battery demands. Indigenous people see their lives and livelihoods drying up to see their lands and rivers drying up. They gain little benefit, but bear tremendous cost of it. These examples, and it's just not Congo. In South America's lithium triangle, Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile, communities are facing another crisis. Lithium extraction drains massive amounts of water in the areas already suffering from the drought. They gain little benefit, but bear tremendous cost, just like in Congo. These examples demonstrate that true sustainability goes beyond technology. It demands ethical action. To genuinely achieve responsible consumption and production as listed in SDG 12, we must ensure transparency, fairness, and accountability at every step of the battery life cycle. A meaningful climate action, as being emphasized in SDG 13, must not only protect our environment, but also safeguard human dignity and justice for vulnerable communities worldwide. As stakeholders, decision makers, and consumers, we must push beyond mere compliance. We have the power and responsibility to ensure our energy revolution doesn't come at the expense of human life and dignity. At EcoLithium Solutions, we are committed to outlining a clear path from this crisis to an opportunity, a path where ethical responsibility and sustainable innovation converge. To dig deeper into how companies are addressing this issue or perhaps avoiding these responsibilities, I would like to invite my colleague Maliha, who will speak about corporate social responsibility and the critical issue of greenwashing in this topic. Maliha, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Supriya. So when we are talking about the corporate governance and the greenwashing, there are already rules laid by the government that, it's the responsibility of the manufacturer that the product is disposed of correctly, or either it's recycled. But many companies are not doing that, and they are doing something that is known as the greenwashing. Now, what is greenwashing? Greenwashing is something where you give this illusion that you are actually care about the environment, but on ground your practices are not aligning with what is considered environmental friendly. Now I want to touch upon a few reasons that why are companies doing greenwashing in the first place. The first reason is that the companies themselves don't have the information. Most of the companies are just focused on, oh, we are reducing the carbon footprint, but there are tons of implications, if environmental implication other than the carbon footprint, which these companies are not aware of. The second reason is there's lack of ambition. They don't understand that there is urgency and or the needed for the organization role in delivering these changes. Number third reason is they do talk about the environmental friendly solution, but actually there is no one to take the accountability if something goes wrong. So considering all these causes of the greenwashing, how our solution is making sense? Number one, on a corporate level, we have independent oversights. So we are not just taking the opinion from the investors who invested in it, but the independent organization, the NGOs will also play the role in that to making sure that the things are bias free. Number two, on the if I'm talking about the greenwashing side, then we are going for the no misleading labels. That means just we are not just focused on using the buzzwords, oh, this is environmental friendly, we care about the environment. Our solutions are actually backed by the data. For example, compared 72% compared to this, we improve. So there are always numbers involved to make it like to give the impression, okay, it's just not something we are making up, but we have basis for this. Number one, another thing is verified sustainability claims. So we are involving other bodies who's like Cradle to Cradle or UL Environment to see our processes. So to make sure that we are our claims are backed by the other independent organizations as well. Now I'll hand over to Amlan Singh Gupta to talk more about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Maliha. So a major part of EVs is the development of batteries and the systems that go along with it. In the past decade and a half, the manufacturing of EVs has skyrocketed, and also the tech that goes behind it, from using single cell batteries to combining them to compounding them and creating new types of batteries which are considered better. For example, the initial lead acid batteries which we used were quite corrosive and bad, but then we moved to lithium ion and currently moving into an era of gallium nitrate, though costlier. All of these come with efficiency and cost in mind, but the thing that is not considered more often than not is the impact that they have on the environment and what happens at the end of the life cycle. This is one of the biggest concerns in the EV industry, where once the battery is used, how do you dispose it and how do you take care of it? This is where our solution comes into picture. Innovative end-of-life manufacturing is something that has to be kept in mind by all the manufacturers. It is something that we look at as an integral part of the process that involves recycling and forming a complete life cycle, and something that we hope to advise and involve manufacturers in so that it makes the whole process easier. For example, EVs manufactured by Tesla at the moment will include a lot of parts which cannot be recycled directly. And unfortunately, if grinded down to a state where they have to be used in hydrometallurgical processes, do not give the best results, which lead to lesser retrieval of lithium and nickel and cobalt. Using other technologies which are currently used in EU countries where there are sanctions to use less rubber materials, it does involve cases where it is easier to recycle since those parts are easily removable and therefore allowing a higher retrieval of rare earth minerals. This is something that we are currently focused on because we do use hydrometallurgical processes in our solutions that which involves not grinding node parts. So our current processes are good enough to get a higher retrieval. But if there are certain regulations and certain tech in place which make sure that those are not being used, it is easier for us. We have a set plan for this, which we can propose to manufacturing companies, which helps them make better decisions. Another aspect of this is the fact that we are nuclear facilities, which allows us to modify, and we're not a stringent, strict set process, which allows us to modify ourselves. We also want to go with as much tech as possible to make it as transparent as possible. So one of the initiatives that we took upon ourselves as a company was to introduce blockchain. This helps us track and identify the various batteries throughout their life cycle, and also allows us to be transparent about the process that we are committing and the data that is with us. So like Maliha mentioned, we have metrics to track everything, but there are also metrics which are freely available to the public. So there is no form of mispractice or misappropriation of funds. To end this, I would like to say that EcoLithium as a company is very focused on recycling and creating a complete loop of an ecosystem along EVs so that the batteries can be recycled and the cars that do end up at the end of the life cycle do not go to waste. Thank you.
And we'll move into our final 10-minute presentation from Bread and Butter.
Thanks for calling us back to the presentation. So considering that where we have left off, so we have mentioned about the risk footprint analysis methodology, where we are like applying for taking the entire value chain of the automotive company. So in that case, we are told about how the ethics factor and sustainability is integrated into the risk and footprint. So though we assess risk based on the processes what we have, footprint is a factor which takes into the ethical aspect or whom it is being encountered, be it the humans or the environment. Also, there has been questions on what are the guiding principles on which our RFA was based. So we had mentioned about the principles of natural justice, where we give priority to the processes which will have a huge impact on humans and environment. And apart from that, the stakeholders theory and the triple bottom line framework. Now, dwelling on more upon the various issues in the value chain, right from raw material sourcing till that of the end of life processes, over to my teammate Pratik for explaining about what are the key ethical issues which we are encountering in the during the process.
Thank you so much, Giri. So we have prominently came with 5 ethical issues. The very first one is related with the unsafe raw material sourcing. So this involves the use of child labor and unsafe mining practices in the extraction of cobalt and lithium. Such practices actually violate fundamental human rights and endanger workers' life. Second, polluting manufacturing plants. So automotive factories, particularly in some regions, generate very high emissions that contribute not only to air pollution, but harm the health of nearby communities. So this is what we have seen in the case of silent sufferings of the sacrifice environmental justice, but to qualities. The third one, worker exploitation in lower tier suppliers. Suppliers, especially those further down the supply chain, may subject workers to low wages, unsafe working conditions, and disregard for labor laws. So this raises ethical questions about fair treatment of workers and the responsibility of OEMs to ensure ethical practices throughout their supply network. Now comes to fourth one, ignoring community impact. Automotive operations like plant expansions can lead to negative social consequences like displacement of residents or depletion of water resources. So companies have an ethical obligation to consider and mitigate these impacts on local communities. And last but not the least one, lack of end-of-life strategies. The industry often lack comprehensive plans for the responsible disposal and recycling of vehicles and their components, leading to waste and environmental harm. So this highlights the need for a circular economy approach and extended producer responsibility, so which we call as the EPR. So Shraddha will take this forward from now. Can you please come in?
Hello. Thank you for giving us the chance to explain that how all the issues, the ethical concerns that Pratik mentioned, and how our solution is addressing it. Very first thing that I want to highlight that our solution is divided into two parts. One is our risk score, and the second is our footprint score. To understand the ethical issues, the major part is our footprint score. Our footprint score analyzes two things. One of them is environmental
and other is the social impact. There is different scoring. There is score from 1 to 5 for environment impact plus 1 to 5 for social impact. Okay, then we will go into the risk. Like understanding the footprint score, we will analyze how much risk it is bringing to the organization, or how much that issue is like how much is that issue is under our control, or what is the severity, or what is the variability of that issue. So we have done that for the ethical issues as well. The very first thing that Pratik mentioned, I will try to address it by giving an example of the very first thing, that is the unethical sourcing. So considering the battery sourcing for a tier 3 supply chain, we will consider the severity of this entire situation is 5, because ethically it is a human right violation when we are using labor laws are violated, when the sourcing conditions are not correct. So we are considering the severity of it as 5, and this is derived from the footprint score. The footprint score is for environment, it is 4, because it has a very high, we all know lithium is good for our new electric vehicles, but its sourcing has a very huge impact on the environment. And while it's sourced, it has a huge impact on the ethical concerns, because the labor laws are not correctly followed. The environment under which it is extracted is very much harmful for the human beings. So this is one, that's why we have given the score for environmental impact as 4, and the social impact is the highest, that is 5. So the total for footprint score becomes 9, from which we derive the severity score, which is 5. Variability, like as there are different type of suppliers across the whole. Sorry, I just got disconnected, I think, Jason. Sorry.
That's okay. No, it seems we're experiencing a little bit of tech difficulty. So I'll have you just kind of rewind a little bit there and restate.
From where you want me to start, if it's okay?
I'll maybe about 30 seconds back of where you were.
Okay. So as I was addressing, like I will take up one issue that Pratik first mentioned, that is the unethical sourcing. So as a company, when I am addressing it, how I will be breaking down the scores. So our method, that is RFA, how it is addressing it based on footprint score. Footprint is the impact, like every process has an impact. Even if it's an ethical process, it must have an environmental impact and a social impact. So we divide the scores accordingly. As we know that the unethical sourcing has a huge impact socially, because the labor laws are violated, the environment conditions are not correct, even sometimes child labors are used in that. So the social impact score is higher, on the higher side, that the top score 5, and the environmental score we have given 3 to 4, because even the extraction has an impact on the environment, because its natural resources are being depleted. So the environment score is also 3 to 4. So the overall footprint score is higher. Based on the footprint score, we analyze what is the severity, variability, and how much we can control. We give a score to that. So the very first thing that we do is the severity. Obviously, this has a very severe impact. So the severity score is 1, because there is a very clear violation of human rights, and also there is a chance of huge impact on the environment. Then we come into the variability. We know there are multiple suppliers across global for these kind of extraction, procurement of batteries, lithium batteries, or any kind of sourcing. So there is an inconsistency there in their behavior, in their processes. So this is the score we are giving 3, because there is some inconsistency. Then we come into the control part, whether we will be able to control it, or is there any existing control or audit available for it. Currently, there are not much stringent law for it, that we can have a clear audit. There is a very clear indication. Our solution actually provide that we will be able to identify it. We will be able to have a control over it. We can able to audit the processes. So our control score currently is 1. Once this entire analysis is done, our RFA scoring is very high. Once we identify that it is very high, the ethical concerns, based on that, we will be taking on the action. Like for battery sourcing, we will be doing a blockchain-based supplier traceability. We will be completely tracing each and every action the supplier is going through. We will make them sign contract with us, ensuring that whichever steps, whichever way the company norms are completely follow, ethically maintained. It will have some cost impact, obviously, but going on the long run, as Grigiri also said, we will be completely focusing on nature first. Our focus are people first also. So even if with the cost impact, we know going ahead the line, there will be benefit. because the people will be secured and our employees ourselves will be very much secured. They will be also be happy to work in an organization. So this is where we address one issue. Similarly, we address the other ethical issues as well based on